Alright, so we are going to today make this game more difficult. And we said, as you can see highlighted here on my game design document, that one way we're going to do that is by speeding up the ball as it moves around the room. Now we're not going to speed it up really as it moves. Really, we're going to speed it up every time it hits something. Hits a wall, hits a brick, hits the bat. All three of those things, all three of those places, we are going to affect the speed. What we are going to do to lay out kind of the path here, we need to create two new variables. One for the initial speed, one for the current speed. The reason for that is that when we go to do the power up, we want to know what the initial speed is. Because the power up is basically going to reassign the speed variable the value of the initial speed. The reason why we have a speed variable to begin with is so that there's a layer of protection between setting the speed of the ball and the act of changing the speed. Okay? So when we change the speed, we're going to change the speed variable, and then we have to use the speed variable to set the speed of the ball. Okay? That's the plan. So here we go. We're going to go to GameMaker, and we're going to do this. Okay? I will go ahead, when it's time, I'm going to go ahead and add more bricks. I just have a small number of bricks just because I was testing Game Over yesterday. Okay? We're going to double click on OBJ ball to go there. We're going to double click on the create event to open it. Okay? And in the create event, oops, I don't want that. There we go. In the create event, we've already assigned one variable called go. The one variable called go is there for starting the game. We are just going to click the plus to add a couple of new variables. So I'm going to click the plus twice. And we're going to add a couple of new variables. The two variables that we're adding, first one is going to be our initial speed. So I'm going to abbreviate both of those things. So init for initial, SPD for speed. Okay? The initial speed is 3. Now this is going to look weird, but you'll understand. We're going to have another variable called simply SPD for speed. Okay? So SPD. And I'm going to use the value of the initial speed variable for the speed. And here's why. If I ever want to change the initial speed to a higher value, I only have to change it once. So if I change the initial speed, I only have to change it in the initial speed, and then the ball will get whatever. The ball will start out with the speed. Now, this is also going to necessitate us doing some changes to some of the stuff we've already done, but that's okay. Also, we should probably think about resetting the speed when we die, because that seems only fair, right? Seems only fair that we should reset the speed back to the initial speed every time that the ball gets past the bat. That might look a little weird if we don't. So, we got some things to do. The main thing that we're going to do is go to the step event. Double click on it to go to the step event. Okay. Now the only thing that's currently in our step event is the code that allows the ball to stay on the bat when the go variable is false. Okay. We're going to add to this, but I want to add in something that's going to go in an else for the if variable. Because if go is true is the only time I want it to run. I don't want to set the speed while the ball's sitting on the bat. Right? So I'm going to add an else to this if. That's the first thing. And then inside that else, I'm going to add a set speed. Okay? So below the... Let me zoom out for context. So the set speed has to be to the right of the else because we're attaching it to the else. Right? So we have the if variable, go is already there with the set instance variable. The else is added onto the if. So I just dragged it to the bottom of the if so it jumped down below the set instance variable. And then I attached the set speed to that. And I'm just going to leave the type as direction, but speed I will in just a moment. For the set speed itself, I'm going to use the SPD variable to set the speed. So I'm going to zoom in again so you can see that. So for the set speed, I've used direction and then the SPD variable. Again, this is where my layer of protection between altering the speed and then setting the speed is. Yes, I can. You can see there's a relative box for the set speed. I could directly set the speed. I could directly adjust the speed every time. I'm adding a layer of protection so that if something goes horribly wrong, the ball doesn't suddenly speed up so fast that it's impossible to fix. Okay? And then we can also do stuff with the speed variable a lot easier. We just worried about altering a variable rather than setting the speed everywhere. And again, I want to make sure I have that in place. Okay. So now, other places though that we have set the speed, we need to change, at least for the space. We need to start moving. Instead of setting the speed to direction, we're going to set the speed to SPD. Right, so in the set speed inside, I went to key press space. So I double clicked on key press space to get there. There is already a set speed block there. That was our set speed from when we started the game originally. All I'm doing is instead of having 3 for the speed value, I'm putting SPD instead. So I use my speed variable. And again, that way if I ever change the initial speed, it will filter through all of the program. Okay? That's another reason for using a variable. If I want to reuse one value a ton of times, rather than trying to remember what value I had, if I store it in a variable and I know what variable I want to use, I can use the variable over and over and over again. It's part of the beauty of variables. Okay. We don't do anything with, really technically speaking, with bat or brick. Okay? Because if you look at both the bat and the brick, in the bat object, we're talking about direction, not about speed. We're just making the ball change direction, which is what a bounce is, right? Anything that bounces, it's not necessarily losing speed, it's just changing direction. So we're not doing anything with speed, so there's really nothing to do in bat or brick. Right? Everything else is happening in, well, I guess we do have to do something with bat. I misspoke, sorry. We're only changing, but we want to actually change the speed in when we hit the bat. Okay? So we're going to add that in right now. I forgot about that part. We wanted to speed up when we hit the bat. Okay? Now the whole point of having the speed variable versus directly setting the speed is so that I can use an assign variable block. So I'm going to drag that out at the bottom to adjust the speed. So the name of the variable I'm assigning is speed, SPD. And then the value I'm assigning, we're going to speed up by just 0.1 each time. And then I click relative because I want to add 0.1 to speed. Okay. The reason why it's 0.1 and not a higher value is to make it slowly speed up over time. The player's not going to notice one speed change of 0.1. But you know what? They're going to notice 10 changes of 0.1. And they'll notice 20 changes of 0.1. And they'll notice 40 changes and so on. They'll notice lots of changes over time, but it won't become apparent to them until it's bounced around a bunch. Okay? We're also going to speed up the ball when we do OBJ brick. So we're going to do the exact same thing. Assign variable, speed, 0.1, relative. But now we're in OBJ brick. SPD 0.1 relative. Okay. We're in brick now. So in BAT, I already added it. In OBJ brick, I'm adding it. Same thing. It's the same exact thing we did in BAT, though. Assign variable, the speed variable, value 0.1. Remember, in the step event, we're constantly reassigning the speed of the ball to the speed variable. So we only need to adjust the speed variable, not the actual speed itself. Okay, now we're gonna do a little trick. You ready for this? So I'm gonna go to intersect boundary. Now, as you recall, as you probably should recall, we have 4 different if statements in intersect boundary, one for each of the boundaries, and here's why. Because there are 4 sides to the screen. Okay? Now, we could add 3 assigned variables to each of the if statements. That would be acceptable. But I'm going to use a trick instead. Okay? And here's my trick. So, of the 4 sides of the screen, how many of those sides are we bouncing off of? 3 out of the 4. Which is the one I'm not bouncing off of? The bottom. Okay. So this is also going to help us with doing a sound effect. So if I am bouncing off of 3 of the 4 sides, and I want to change the speed every time I bounce off of a side, it might be easier, rather than adding 3 assigned variables, to go down here. This is the if variable for the bottom. Let's add an else to it. Because if it's not bouncing off the bottom, it's got to be bouncing off one of the other 3 sides. Because this event only triggers when we touch a boundary. So we're going to drag the else to just underneath the if variable for the bottom, and then we're going to add our assigned variable there. SPD 0.1 and relative. So again, it's the same exact thing we've done. This time though, we're putting an else on the bottom. This is the if variable for the bottom. This goes all the way down here to this else, where we have the assigned variable for SPD and the 0.1. So then it occurs to me that we also want to make the sound, right, that bounce sound happen when we hit one of the 3 sides. So we don't have to have 3 play audios. We can actually condense that to 1 if we wanted to. So I could take Right? Because if I go look at the big picture here, which I can't get the whole big picture, but you can see there's 3 different play audios. I can see the purple, even though I can't read them. So we can get rid of 2 of those. Let me get rid of that one. Get rid of that one. And I'm going to move this one down to the bottom. Hopefully. Let's, I guess, zoom out so I can move it.
Okay, you got rid of 2 audios, right?
Yep, and I'm going to drag the other one down all the way to the bottom. Right underneath the assigned variable. Should look like this now. Because, so, the logic, right? When it comes to if statements, we have if this happens, then do this. But if it doesn't happen, do something else. In this case, we have 4 if statements. So again, the logic here is I have 4 sides to bounce off of. I have 2 things I want to have happen when I bounce off of 3 of the 4 sides. I have 4 if statements, one for each of the sides. So if I take the one for the bottom, and I add an else to it, that's when I don't hit the bottom, but I've hit any of the other sides. I'm going to speed up the ball, and I'm going to play the audio. At this point, I think we have everything we need except for, almost forgot, as part of the reset, we need to reset the speed to the initial speed. So we're just going to reset the variable. I'm not going to drag another assigned variable block because there's already one there. I'm just going to click the plus. We're going to change the speed variable to the init speed variable. So again, part of the deal with speeding up the ball is that, and I don't want to say it like a reward, but the positive thing that will come from losing a life should be that the player gets to start back at the original speed of the ball before it moved. Okay? Although we may not need to do that, actually, come to think of it. But that's alright. No, we will. We do need to reset it because we're setting the speed. Okay, never mind. I do need to do that. So I added on to the assigned variable block another space, and then I put speed for the name, init speed for the value. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. I got to go back to my room, though, and add some more bricks because I want to. And I'm just going to test real quick. Okay. And what should happen is when I press space, it's going to start, and then as I bounce the ball off of stuff, it's going to speed up. If I die, it's going to return back to its original speed. So I want to test all of those things. Plus, I want to make sure that things still sound when they bounce. Okay, I'm starting to notice the speed up. See, things are moving faster. Okay. But now when I start again, it starts at that same speed of 3. Alright. Cool. So what you should notice is you should notice that it's more challenging, and then it gets a little more fun, and then when you die, you should go back to the original speed. And it looks like everything's working. And nothing else has been affected. I'm going to make sure that my losing all my lives has not been affected, which it hasn't. So I'm good.